All right, so welcome to another deep dive. Yeah, today's a little bit different. Yeah. Instead of like an article or report or something like that, we're looking at just a bunch of like phrases and sentences.
Oh, wow.
Almost like, somebody took a bunch of pieces of paper, wrote random things on them, threw them in a hat, and we pulled them out.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the question is, can we find connections? Is there some sort of meaning that we can pull out of all of this randomness? Let's see.
Yeah, let's find out.
Let's find out. So we've got some, really interesting phrases right off the bat. We got one that says flat interface and another one Type-C charging cable.
Hmm.
Yeah, it definitely feels like we're starting in the tech world, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind with that flat interface is like, design.
Yeah.
Things have kind of gone in that minimalist direction.
Right.
Trying to make things very streamlined and simple. Like you think about how app icons have, even evolved.
Oh, yeah.
They've gone from being kind of, very, very detailed and kind of skeuomorphic to, almost looking like hieroglyphs almost.
Totally.
Very simple, very clean, very flat.
Yeah, just very basic shapes and colors, but we all know, exactly what they mean. And then, I mean, the Type-C charging cable, I feel like that is everywhere now.
Yeah. I mean, talk about ubiquity, right?
Yeah.
That's the one. And it's not just, that it's just, taking over the world. It's the technology in it allows for, faster data transfer, higher power delivery.
Right.
So, I mean, that's really important for like, things like if you're doing 4K video, you're trying to stream that, or, you want to charge your phone or your laptop quickly, you need that technology to be able to do that.
Right. So it's not just a design trend. Like there's actual functionality that's driving that change as well.
For sure.
Okay. So moving on, we get this, kind of set of phrases. The invoice is not due yet. The work I did yesterday was a bit mixed and fragmented. And then the word ad hoc. I don't know. I mean, I've definitely felt that fragmentation in my own work. Like, have you?
Oh, yeah.
Especially recently.
I mean, that's the reality of work these days, right? I think everybody's switching between so many different things. You're on a million different, platforms and projects.
Totally.
And just trying to manage all of that. That's got to feel, fragmented. It has to, and ad hoc. I mean, that's part of it, right? You gotta be able to adjust.
Yeah.
You gotta be flexible. Things change, things come up, but sometimes that can kind of lead to that chaotic feeling too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I think those definitely go together.
For sure. So then we get Mandarin dubbing. That's an interesting one.
Okay.
And then the dumbing seems way too unnatural and stiff. And this kind of, makes me think about like the challenges of translation, right? Like not just translating words,
Right.
but like how do you translate humor? How do you translate, just the tone and the feeling of something?
Yeah, it's so much more than just, substituting one word for another.
Right.
Like you have to think about all the nuances of language, right?
Yeah,
A slight change in inflection can change the entire meaning of something.
totally.
And humor especially. I mean, it's notoriously difficult to translate.
It's real hard.
What's funny in one culture can just like totally bomb in another one.
Completely. And then you have the challenge of making it sound natural, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of have a newfound appreciation for the people that do dubbing well
Yeah,
because it's a real art,
absolutely. It's a skill for sure.
Okay. So speaking of things that are, don't always flow smoothly, we get this phrase slipped away. And this one really made me like pause and think because, such a simple little phrase,
Yeah,
but it could mean so many things.
right.
Like it could be a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
It could be, a forgotten memory. It could even be like a fleeting moment of peace or something like that.
Right.
It makes me wonder, like, is that sense of something slipping away? Is that like a universal human experience, or
Hmm.
or do different cultures perceive time and memory in different ways?
That's a great question. I think yeah, I mean, I think the perception of time is definitely something that varies, between cultures. Like some cultures are very future oriented, they're very focused on what's coming next and making plans and all that. And then
Yeah.
other cultures are much more present focused, right?
Yeah.
And I think, how we experience time individually is also, very much influenced by, our own personal experiences and our backgrounds and all that. So, yeah, I don't know, it's a good point. It makes me think of that, that feeling when you're trying to think of a word
Oh, yeah.
and it's right there on the tip of your
Oh,
tongue.
it's the worst.
It's like just you just can't quite grasp it.
Yep.
That's kind of like something skipping away in a way, too.
Yeah, it really is. It's like your brain is playing hide and seek with you. All right. So then the next phrase is, I use the process of elimination. And I love this one because, how often do we do that in life, right? Like
Right.
it's such a fundamental problem-solving decision-making strategy.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we see it everywhere, right? In science, in medicine,
Yeah.
Like when you're trying to figure something out, sometimes the best way to do it is to rule out all the things that it's not.
Yeah.
And then you're left with the answer. And even just even in everyday life, right?
Yeah.
Like deciding what to eat, like, okay, well, I don't want this, I don't want that.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, yeah, I think that's a very, very common approach to problem solving and decision making.
Okay. And then we get to some phrases that really make me hungry. I know it's not the healthiest choice, but sometimes you just want a little indulgence, some guilty pleasure, but no regrets. I mean, come on. Like, we've all been there, right?
For sure.
Like, we all have those moments where, like, yeah, salad would be great, but I really just want a big piece of chocolate cake.
Yeah.
I'm not going to feel bad about it. I'm just gonna enjoy it.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah. What about you? Any guilty pleasures you care to confess?
Oh man. Well, I mean, yeah, I'm a sucker for like a good slice of chocolate cake or like a really good like greasy burger,
Okay. Yeah.
you know, something like that. But, I think this phrase also kind of speaks to like our complex relationship with food.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not just about sustenance, right? Like it's about pleasure, it's about comfort, it's about social connection, even cultural identity.
Totally.
Like different cultures have, very different relationships with food
Yeah.
and what they eat and how they eat it and all that. So, yeah, I think it's very, very fascinating.
Absolutely. So then we have like a little bit of a contrast here. We have this food is so bland, there's no flavor at all, and then this has a rich flavor,
Right.
and then the tastes don't work together, it doesn't click. It's like we're on a culinary roller coaster here.
Yeah.
But I mean, it really just highlights like how subjective taste is, right?
Oh, absolutely.
What one person finds bland, another person might find like delightfly subtle.
Yeah. Yeah.
And getting those flavor combinations, right? Like that's an art.
It really is.
It really is.
And I mean, like, you think about, like, the science of taste, right? Like, we have the 5 basic tastes, sweet, sour, salty, bitter, umami.
Yeah.
But flavor is so much more than that. It's about the aroma, it's about the texture, it's about the temperature of the food,
Right.
Like, all these things kind of come together. And even like, our emotional state, like how we're feeling can affect how we taste things.
Yeah.
And then, and then you add the cultural aspect of it, like some cultures love spicy food.
Totally.
Other cultures, they want things very mild. So, yeah, it's amazing how all of those things come together to create, our individual flavor preferences.
Absolutely. All right. So switching gears a little bit,
Yeah.
we get this phrase, lions are apex predators in the African savanna. And I don't know, like that image in my mind just evokes a feeling of like raw power and grace,
Yeah.
like they're just such incredible animals.
Yeah, I mean they're at the top of the food chain.
Yeah.
They're incredible hunters. Their movements are both, powerful and efficient. They've evolved to be, perfect hunting machines.
Yeah.
And speaking of movement, the next phrase is animated movies. And this may seem like a jump, but
Sure.
but animators, they study animal movement in detail to create realistic and, really engaging characters,
Right?
Like, think about, how a lion pounces or, how a cat just kind of like subtly twitches its ear,
Yeah.
Like those little details, those make animated characters come to life.
Right, right. It's like they're trying to capture the essence of that movement and translate it into something that we can see on the screen.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And then, which muscles are most engaged in this exercise?
Hmm.
It's making me think about my workout routine.
Yeah, and that's a great connection to make because, understanding which muscles are being, worked during an exercise is really key to both effectiveness and, preventing injury.
Right.
So, fun example, like if you're doing a squat, that's primarily working your quads, your glutes, your hamstrings,
Yeah.
whereas a push-up is going to be more focused on your chest, your tricep, and your shoulders. So, knowing which muscles are involved can help you, you know, tailor your workouts to meet your specific goals.
For sure. For sure. Okay. This last set of phrases, this is a lot about, I don't feel like, time and relationships and how those things kind of intertwine.
Hmm.
So we have, it could be finished next Monday at the latest. And immediately after that, it's really hard to say goodbye to that. And it just feels like this like bittersweet feeling, right? Of
Yeah.
like, yeah, there's a deadline.
Right.
We have to move on, but there's a little bit of sadness or a little bit of, melancholy attached to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, deadlines are there for a reason, right?
Right.
They help us to kind of, create structure and get things done.
Yeah.
But yeah, endings can be hard, even if they're planned endings.
Right.
It's like whether it's, finishing a project or, moving on from a job or even, a personal relationship ending,
Yeah.
letting go of things can be really difficult.
Totally.
Yeah.
So then we have return trip, which, obviously implies some kind of a journey
Mm.
and maybe even going back to something familiar. But then, like, the next couple of phrases really kind of highlight how even when you go back to something familiar, it's not always the same, Still getting used to the team's pace and working out how we all fit together and still adjusting to how everyone ticks here.
Mm.
It's almost like you're trying to, like, find your place in a new ecosystem.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think, starting a new job, joining a new team, moving to a new place even. It's like learning a new dance,
Yeah.
Like you're trying to figure out the rhythm, you're trying to figure out the steps,
Yeah.
And there's this period of adjustment. You're kind of figuring out the dynamics,
Right.
Like how do I fit in?
Yeah.
What are the kind of like unspoken rules here,
Yeah.
And I think, it takes time, it takes communication,
Sure.
it takes building trust to
Yeah.
kind of, get to that point where it feels, kind of seamless and comfortable.
Absolutely. So then we have this phrase, I cannot catch what you're throwing. It's hard for me to pick up. And, this could be like literally somebody throwing something.
Yeah.
But it also makes me think about those times where you're like in a conversation with somebody and you just feel like you're not on the same page.
Oh,
Where-
yeah.
Like you're missing something, Yeah.
You're not quite connecting.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's where, active listening, clear communication, that's so important,
Yeah.
It's being willing to, to say like, hey, I'm not sure I understand. Or can you explain that a different way?
Right.
You
Yeah,
know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Being able to really make sure that everybody's on the same page.
Yeah.
And I think, being able to do that, building those strong communication channels, I mean, that's essential for any, whether it's a team or a personal relationship. I mean,
Any kind of relationship.
yeah, for sure.
Wow. So we started with this like totally random collection of phrases and sentences, and look where we ended up.
I know.
We talked about technology, we talked about work, we talked about, the food we eat, the way we move our bodies.
Yeah.
Like relationships, communication, all these like really big, important things.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It's amazing how like these little fragments of language can really spark such a rich conversation, I think.
And I think what's really, really interesting is how, like, all these things are kind of interconnected. Like at first glance, they seem very different, but when you kind of like start to think about them a little bit more deeply, you realize that, it's all kind of part of this big tapestry of the human experience.
It really
You
is.
know?
So I guess to our listeners out there, like as you go through your day today, as you're having conversations, as you're just, observing the world around you,
Yeah.
what connections do you see emerging? What hidden meanings are there waiting to be discovered in those everyday moments that, might seem insignificant at first, but maybe there's something deeper there.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's another deep dive. Thanks for coming along with us. We'll see you next time.
See ya. 24 days.